All right, so it looks like we're up to about 170 attendees, and that's leveling off. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Have a few announcements to go through before I kick it over to Matt and Nathan for their presentations this morning. So first off, welcome everybody. We're really glad that you're able to take a few minutes today, participate in these webinars and get an update for what's going on in the construction season, what's ahead for us, and the impacts of the virus and everything that's going on and what it has on our industry. I don't think any of us could have predicted that we would be canceling these regional meetings and doing these webinars. APAI went through a strategic planning process just about 3 weeks ago, and still at that time, there wasn't any anticipated impact on our day-to-day lives or our industry, and so here we are. So it's definitely a fluid situation, and we're adjusting as best we can. I do want to thank the governor, thank the commissioner, Roland Fagan and his team, and everybody that has corresponded with us. Of course, we're considered an essential service, and I think that that's really important and really good for our membership to be able to help our communities and continue our work. I also want to thank our members who are continuing to go out there and to work and to make sure that they're building our roads and placing asphalt pavement. So it's really important that we keep working and that our infrastructure moves forward. As far as what's been going on with the association and the different information exchange that we've had, we're communicated with them by email. For the most part, Indiana Constructors, who is ICI, has led the efforts from all of the construction associations on any anticipated project delays or complications. The different associations reaching out, we've kind of centralized. We are having a once a week phone call, so that's been very helpful. As you have any issues come up or concerns, I would ask that you do pass that along to the association and we can address that. Specifically anything on supply chain, project delays. You have questions about how to maintain social distancing on your project sites. Another one's e-ticketing. I know that's gotten a lot of traction the last week or so. Any questions like that, make sure that you're communicating with myself or Jamie, and we can facilitate that with INDOT and with the other association groups. And then also I'd ask if you have any positive stories, share those with us as well. Anything you're doing to help your community, donations of this. We would love to hear about that, accumulate some of those things that are going on, and maybe push that out on our social media channels. As far as our INDOT committees, we still have a lot of ongoing efforts with those. We don't want to lose the progress that we've had. Thinking IRI, balanced mix design, which is the performance testing, and then some of the pavement design things that we were working on alternate bid jobs. We still want to work forward on those we put on the back burner while we go through the next month or two. So you may see the opportunity to participate in some more of these Zoom calls or conference calls, and that will be a way that we can keep moving forward on those efforts and not get behind and have to restart later this summer. Wanted to go through some of our upcoming events and give you an update on where we stand on those. So as of now, all of our in-person meetings for the month of April have either been postponed or canceled or moved to Zoom. That includes things like committee meetings, lunch and learns. We are fortunate in that for APAI, we didn't have a huge number of large events, not really any revenue producing events that were affected. I know other asphalt associations are having to cancel their annual meeting. They're having to delay or work around some of their certification programs that were scheduled to take place in April. So luckily all of that has already happened for us this winter. The only major event that we did have in April is our Shooting for Scholarships. That was set for April 28th. We did make a decision on Friday that we are going to go ahead and postpone that event. So we're working on a new date. It looks like that will likely be June 2nd. So for those of you that are registered, you'll be getting an email here in the next couple of days that will give you information on, if you want to refund or if you want to donate directly to the scholarship fund with what you've already registered with, or if you want to plan on attending that June 2nd date. So some of our other upcoming meetings that are still, as of now, scheduled to happen as planned. On May 14th, we have a board meeting. Shooting for Scholarships, we're looking at tentatively scheduling for June 2nd. The Trident Golf outing is June 12th. And then our joint summer meeting with IMAA is scheduled for July 24th through 26th. So more information will be sent on those events as we watch what develops and what happens in the weeks ahead. Lunch and learns and committee meetings that were scheduled for this month, like I said, those have been canceled or postponed. We do need to have some of our committees meet, such as our conference planning committee. So we'll likely be setting that up to be a Zoom meeting. Lastly, before I kick it over to Katie to go through how today's webinar will work, did want to mention our antitrust policy, which means we're to have no discussion on contract pricing. And with that, thank you IMAA for what you guys did to set up today's webinar. Katie, if you want to go ahead and go through our plan for today.
Awesome, thank you, Kirsten. So I just have a few housekeeping things to go over as far as the webinar is concerned. We are recording this, so we will be able to post this at a later date, either later this week or early next week. It'll be on the IMA YouTube page as well as on the IMA website. I'll make sure that Kirsten has the links as well that she can send out to her membership. And I'll send all those links out in an email to all those that have attended as well. There is, I would like to point out, a chat function that you can access, and all the panelists can see the chat. So if you have a comment or something you would like to bring up there, the panelists will be able to see it and be able to answer you. There's also a Q&A section, question and answer section, where we can view questions and either answer them live or type in answers for you. So again, all the panelists will be monitoring that. We'll use that Q&A section as well as the chat to combine a document to send out as well for questions that have come up. And I do want to point out that there is in the Q&A section a My Questions section as well as an All Questions section. So you can view, if you have your own specific questions, if you can view those answers, or if you want to see all the questions. You can also upvote other people's questions on there to make sure that we get those answered. And I believe we're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end to do any unanswered questions. If something comes up throughout the webinar, you can either type it in immediately so that you don't lose your thought, or you can wait till the end, go through all the questions to make sure that they get answered. So I believe that's it for this session. Thank you everybody for signing in today, and hopefully this all goes well. And now I will turn it over to Matt and Nathan.
All right, thank you, Katie and Kirsten. So hopefully now you can see me. I'm coming to you from my garage at home, because a lot of us are doing different things now that the world has changed in the last 3 weeks, pretty much. So let me go ahead, share my screen, get the presentation started. Okay, here in a second. All right, there we go. So welcome. I'm sure some of you are here from the last hour. We did the aggregate session, so if you're there, thank you for sticking with us, listening to the asphalt updates. I did say at the beginning of that meeting that the southern regional meeting would have been 2 weeks ago. Today would have been the central, and in 2 days from now would have been the north. We've combined them all into one, which should probably say spring statewide meeting, but I didn't change the title block. So welcome, thank you, and thanks for attending this kind of new thing for us. I hope it doesn't become routine. These Zoom meetings are pretty handy, but there's nothing that can replace, in my opinion, being together in person and seeing each other and talking about things and changes and just networking. So hope to see you all again in the near future. But for now, here's what we've got. So I'm going to talk about a few big picture things. I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to talk about a lot of changes, and then I will finish up with a few things at the end. I like to throw this slide in, though, at the beginning of a lot of presentations, just to kind of say, that I guess pat all of us on the back, that, we work together, INDOT and industry, to make changes to our specifications over the last 7 years now. It seems like I guess it does seem like a long time ago now, since we started making some of these changes. But as you can see there, we have increased our design binder content by typically about 7/10 for each mix across the board. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. We're getting some good mixes now. We haven't solved all the world's problems. There's still things we're working on, obviously, and we're going to talk about some of those today. But we've done a lot of good things, and I just wanted to say thank you. So I do have an organizational update. I've gotten a number of questions over the last 6 things that have changed. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, John Leckie left and went to the dark side, I guess the white side of things, working for the concrete pavement industry. So he was my boss before as a director of materials management. He's gone. And then there's been a few shakeups on the executive staff too. And so I wanted to show this. This is our org chart. Our commissioner, Joe McGinnis, there at the top. And I want to point out Roland Fagan. He's my deputy commissioner, and he has both construction and materials management. He also now has the design group and the research group and right away, actually. So he's gained a few groups over the last maybe 6 months or so. And this is what he has here. You can see myself there, and I'm in materials. And Greg Pankow is the director of construction, also chief engineer. You see the other things there. Research is under Jim Podorowski. Jeremy Hunter has a design group, which also has pavement design group. The only really missing piece that's under a different deputy commissioner is asset management with Louis Fagans. That still has some hands in asphalt and pavement discussions. But I just wanted to share this. This is who reports to who, and then this is my group here at materials. And I want to point out there the recent change. Jim Rauman was assistant state materials engineer, is now state materials engineer as of the beginning of the year. And as you can also see there, Doug Corey is a Greenfield District Testing Engineer. About a year ago, Greenfield District Testing moved and started reporting to OMM. And so that the other 5 are still doing what they've always done. And honestly, Greenfield's doing what they've always done too. They just now happen to report to me instead of reporting out to somebody at Greenfield. So that is, I just wanted to share some of our organizational changes. I do have an update as far as a new group we've created at OMM called the Quality Assurance Group. And one of the things over the years that we have noticed and had a hard time getting a handle on is independent assurance operated differently in different districts. And I'd heard anecdotal things over the years of the way it was done in some districts, maybe not being as good as some others. Again, it's not placing blame, just realizing that we need to have a consistent delivery of that program statewide. And so we're creating this group at OMM. The idea is their main function, big function, is to monitor the activities of independent assurance, suggest improvements, manage all the documents such as a checklist, provide training. That's a big point of emphasis that we want to make going forward. For years, we had a lot of long-term employees, and they probably didn't need training. They learned a lot on the job. A lot of those employees are retiring and moving on, and we have some new people that could really use some centralized, standardized, I should say, maybe type training. And we want to have a central point of contact for everyone related to IA, and they're also handling lab inspections. So we're in the process of getting this group started. A couple employees already doing some of these functions, and we will be continuing moving forward with that. Another recent new change, we've actually had one meeting, and the other one would have happened last week but was canceled because of this coronavirus, is Failed Materials Committee. So this is another thing that over the years had gotten a bit, I don't want to say lack of transparency, but there's just a lot of people that didn't really know how the Failed Materials Committee operated. Decisions would get made, letters would get sent out, and there was maybe a void there of having a interactive process. So many years ago, the Failed Materials Committee met on a monthly basis, and we went away from that in the interest of streamlining everything. I think we maybe lost something over the years, over the last 12 or 14 or however long it's been since we've been having regular monthly meetings. And so we're recreating the Failed Materials Committee. The other thing we wanted to address is there's a lot of things that happen on contracts that end up being investigated that aren't quote unquote failed materials. They're not capital F failed materials. They're something else that happened on the job and we need somebody to look at it. SMA bleeding is an example I've been using. It's a failure. It does not meet specification. We're calling it a contract compliance issue. It's not necessarily a failed material. The test didn't fail. It's a visual spec violation, so to speak. So we need a group to be able to handle these instead of each district just kind of has been handling these, going to research, getting information, et cetera. And so we want this group to be able to handle that. We also expanded the membership quite a bit. We added a representative from design and also asset management. You can see we have Jeremy Hunter, Jim Rauman, Joe Novak, Jason Lowther from those groups as you see listed there. Myself as the chair, and we plan on having a secretary to be determined that will kind of manage the activities of Failed Materials Committee. And then the appeal responses will be signed by Greg. The big change, I don't have it on here, we will allow in-person appeal defenses, so to speak, for all contractors that want to do that at each at the meeting. As there'll be some revised language on the letters also that will be alluding to that we will be rolling out. So we want to bring that back, the ability to come in and state your case and make your pitch to the Failed Materials Committee. And so that's part of this new process also. Another thing I wanted to mention that came out of the Failed Materials Committee discussions and reforming it was something called the Strategic Steering Committee. And I used the example of the drainage layer aggregates in the last session. That's a good one. There's some other things as far as various pavement thicknesses we use for various designs. What are we inputting to MDPDG, et cetera. There's all kinds of things that we consider big picture issues that up till now have been a few different departments at INDOT that have to get together to make a decision. We don't always do a great job of that. So we've recognized that. We want a big picture group of a fairly high level staff to get together and issue a common direction for some of these big issues. Spray pavers is an example of something we'll be addressing, of something where INDOT needs to say this is the direction we're going, and rather than having different voices from different areas having different opinions. So that's something that we'll be meeting monthly also moving forward. And it just started. We've had a couple meetings now, and it really just started. Okay, one more thing. Kind of update, the technician lists are now online. And in the interim between the last meeting and this one, I had a few questions of, because the aggregate technician lists are online, and some people asked for the link, so I added those here. This is something over the years, I think we had been hesitant to put it online because of there was a fear of companies hiring people off the list like a shopping list. Other states have done this. It's not a problem. Really, this is to benefit the technician, so you can check. Each technician can look to see if they're certified and et cetera, when they might expire in the case of field supervisor. And those are at those links there. We've also made some changes to the certification for field supervisor. That's now 5 years, and made those changes this last year. All right, so coronavirus. This is at the front of everybody's mind, obviously right now, and I want to share a little bit about what we're doing at INDOT with the coronavirus before I hand it over to Nathan to give some more spec updates. So as of right now, 11 a.m., a few minutes ago, all INDOT contracts are proceeding as planned per the governor's directive or order. We're an essential function, so contractors, suppliers, et cetera, are deemed an essential function, and all contracts are active, lettings are going, all of that sort of thing. I just wanted to put this disclaimer in case you're watching this in the future and laughing at us. of saying, oh, oh, don't you know that was before everybody became zombies or something or whatever, because things are changing so fast, who knows. As with everything in life, this is subject to change. So I can't predict the future, but as of now, we are full steam ahead. Everything is going. And that being said, I want to move on into what we are doing at testing, at district testing and at OMM to support the ongoing paving and construction operations. So we are going to continue supporting critical functions. Most of us are working from home. Most of the administration staff and even the lab staff has currently been home. A lot of the lab staff are doing some online training right now. It was honestly something we were wanting to get to anyway, and this gave us an opportunity. And a lot of us are still available by phone and email, so don't hesitate to reach out. We're working at home. So what are we doing? Well, we still will be testing HMA samples. We've just started to get a few of those in. The consultants are also active and able to test those samples and get those results out. But what are we not doing? And so I want to highlight, we have postponed any HMA audits, any IA proficiencies. The question will come up, well, what happens if you need somebody to get qualified to take a sample or run a test? We're going to ask to do everything in your ability to find someone else to do that. If that isn't a possibility, we will work with you. So we'll still be running critical samples. The aggregate freezers are continuing to run, and all of these restrictions are currently until May 1st, until we either have to extend them or they'll just expire and we'll all go back to work. So we'll see when the time comes. I don't know what April's going to look like, let alone May. We will consider exceptions to all of these things. So if there's some critical thing that needs to happen, be it a sample taken, a qualification, whatever it is, we still want to ensure throughout this process we're getting quality materials and we're having qualified samplers and testers. But we are going to try to make every effort to postpone and defer in the interest of following the governors and the CDC and everybody's guidelines. We don't want to put people at risk for something that can wait. If it can wait until later, then we need to postpone it. So we will continue to support suppliers and contractors. So we may need to still sample and test, but it will be on a case-by-case basis. We will be, like I said, we will be running asphalt acceptance samples as they come in. Typically now it's going to be a bit of a lighter crew because there's less samples this time of year. But as we get on further into April and May, we'll need to have more of those people come back and run those tests. So I just want to point out we are going to play. It's not always the case, but we're going to try to use common sense at the government in partnership with all you guys. If it doesn't sound critical, it probably isn't. So if you're having to ask yourself the question whether it can wait until May or June, then it probably can. But if it sounds like something that we don't want to hold up an operation, we don't want to do anything that will affect the contractors monetarily, et cetera. And so we will support those, but if it can wait, then we're going to postpone it. So I did have a couple other, I think, questions I don't have on the slide. Like what happens with certain situations like mixed designs, if the mixed design lab is closed, we'll, again, case-by-case basis, we'll look at using a design from last year for that particular issue if you have any. But again, we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis. Reach out to your district testing engineer or somebody with district testing on some of these issues so we can hopefully get a ruling pretty quick, and because we don't want to hold anything up. I don't have an answer to this, but I want to bring it up. IRI. So the IRI certification site in April, in Ohio, I think was happening pretty soon. I don't know if that's happening or not. So I suppose my update is a non-update in a way of I don't exactly know what's happening with our IRI, calibration qualification. I do know for some other aspects of everything we're doing, we've been advised by the commissioner to extend certifications wherever we can. So if we have an existing thing that is qualified, certified, whatever it is, we're being advised to extend those for the time being, whether it be people or equipment or anything else. So I could see that falling into that. But if there is an update, I will share it with the group when we have it. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to give his a lot of spec updates and things like that. So stop sharing, and Nathan, hopefully you should be able to share your screen here in a second.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Nathan Awad. Can you hear me? Everybody hearing me? All right. I guess for those of you who don't know me, I work directly for Jim Ryleman, the state materials engineer, who reports to Matt. So that's kind of where I fit in. Matt is my boss's boss. So I guess I will attempt to share my screen and go right into the slides. Hopefully you guys are seeing this. So since Matt said it, I did just now change that to say statewide preseason meeting. This is new for me, but I'm glad this technology is here, and we can all discuss some of the updates for 2020. This is my basically what I want to go over is some of the spec updates. We have a couple of minor ITM updates, which is pretty rare. Well, I think last year we had about, I don't know, seven or eight ITM updates. I'm not sure we have any directive updates this year. And then I just wanted to, at the end, talk about DMF Entry and HMA Pay Wizard as we're going into the 2020 paving season. So first off, as always, the standard specifications are on the website, as well as the special provisions, recurring special provisions. Those are hard to find now. I used to, you can go over on the left there to the menu button and find it, but you got to click about 15 times. So I actually find it's easier just to go to the search bar and just type in 2020 specifications, and I think it's the first thing that pops up. And that works for like the ITMs as well. But again, specs are on the website. And with that, I want to transition into some of the specification changes that I want to highlight this year. So the first one, it is in the 2020 spec book, is tack coat updates. So as we've talked about in the past, a lot of times with tack coat, it often gets overlooked or tracked, or it's not put down with the most up-to-date equipment. So why do we care about that? Well, eventually it all leads to longer pavement life. So that's the goals. We want to get our pavements to last as long as they can. It's some changes to the 406 section. I think most of you have probably seen this, but again, this is definitely something that's worth reviewing. We cleaned up the materials. There's a bunch of old, outdated materials in there, so we simplified it and left it SS1H or AENT. So there's a lot more guidance now about water. I think before the section actually just said there shall not be wet or shall be no water or something like that. The intent here is sometimes a little bit of water can help mitigate the dust. And the real issue is we don't want to have standing water on the roadway when you're applying the tack. But a little bit of moisture on the surface isn't going to hurt anything. So we also put a lot more guidance on what the tack coat's supposed to look like as far as application. The spec used to just lack any guidance here for industry and for INDOT personnel. So the main point is shall be applied uniformly across the mat, shall cover 95% of the surface, give it time to break and set to minimize tracking, and don't allow streaking or ponding. Should be a nice, smooth black covering of the mat. And then we did update the application rates based on the surface type. Most of the time, milled asphalt is probably going to be the rates you want to pay attention to. But and then just to avoid confusion, we did clear up that asphalt, the emulsion material shall not be diluted. So in the end, we want to see a cleaner surface, no standing water, uniform adequate coverage, and minimized tracking. So these are some more recent jobs where the tack coat was fairly decent. So the whole idea is let's get better with it. All right, so tack coat changes, spec changes. Now I wanted to talk about recurring special provisions that are currently posted, and these are on the website as well. Again, you can probably search for it to get there quicker, but you can click around in the website as well. So 401, 402, and 410, we have some minor changes for all those sections there. And I'm going to go through those changes. What I did want to point out is that Construction Memo 2004 is also posted, which allows any contract let after 9/1, 9/1/19 up to 3/1/2020 to adopt these RSPs. And so I'll go through those here in a second to show you why you may want to adopt these into the current any contracts let between 9/1 and 3/1. So we at INDOT had heard about this for quite a while, that our 9.5 surface mixtures, we forced them to go course graded, and that isn't always the best in regards to how the material looks and how it compacts and things like that. And it was always it made INDOT nervous to change that because the friction issues that can come along with a finer graded surface mix. But we did do some data mining, and we got from some past projects, and we did end up changing that to allow up to 58% passing the 2.36 millimeter sieve on 9.5 mixtures. So that is now, it's now allowed to have slightly finer surface mixtures, 9.5, and we did that to match what's under 12.5 millimeters. We were comfortable with that, so we figured 9.5 could also go there as well. Another change we made, just to give more guidance to those in the field. I would get this question off and on throughout the year, and why not put it in the spec just to make it more clear. Under spreading and finishing, we said no mixture shall be placed on a previous course that is not cooled to below 175 degrees. Basically, that's just to give guidance for when can you get on a mat to pave another layer. Now that we have gotten questions since then about, does this apply? And we made the same change in the 402 section, which I'll show. And we had questions whether or not that applies to patching as well. And I think we're going to release some guidance here in the future that a lot of times patching, you need to get on that. You need to make that next layer before it actually cools below 175. So the intent was not for that to apply to patching, and hopefully we'll make that clear in the future. So the second part of this spec change here in 401, for mixtures compacted in accordance with 402. So what we're saying here is for mixtures that are not controlled by density cores, we have a minimum mixture temperature at the time of spreading. So behind the paver, that mix needs to be 245 degrees if we're not going to test for density. So 402, we made some spec changes. Again, we were hearing about this. Industry had been asking this for quite a while, and we now allow ESL substitution in 402 mix only. And so this is now should be what you can do is if you have a mixture, a 402 mix design that qualifies for all this, you can check A, B, and C there on DMF Entry and use it. So a type D mixture may be used in lieu of a type C or a type B mixture, and a type C mixture may be used in lieu of a type B mixture. So basically we're saying that they're equivalent. If it's a higher type, then it's good for all the lower types. Industry. So and then going down to the 402 air void tolerance there in the middle of the page. Again, we were hearing this from industry, and because of some recent changes we made in the 401 section regarding air voids, the thought was, why do we have a tighter air void tolerance on 402 mix than 401 mix? So we also made that change there. So on the 402 mix on the certifications, that tolerance can now be 2.0 for air voids. And that is currently posted on the, and I'll talk about it here in a minute with ITM 583, that certificate, the blank certification, the example one that's at the end of that has been changed. And then similarly, like I alluded to before, we put the language in here about the mix shall be a minimum temperature of 245, and then the mat that's being paved on should be allowed to cool below 175. So hopefully that is clear there. And then I alluded to the 410 RSP. That just has some of the minimum mixed temperature language in there. So I didn't make a slide on it. It looks exactly like what you're seeing here. All right, so ITM updates. Again, this is pretty minimal this year. Again, they are available on the website if you click through all that stuff. So ITM 571, internally, INDOT, we were used to being able to update ITM 571 because it really only affected our guys performing tests. And we kind of came to a realization that because we changed it mid-year last year, or late October, or late September, beginning of October last year, and we really threw a kink in our consultant lab processes, and we didn't really think how it affected their streamlining of testing. But we went back, took it back, and made some changes to ITM 571 to further clarify issues. And hopefully we got it right this time. We don't have to change it again. But again, I would encourage you to take a look at those if you're curious what those changes are. The 2-second summary is that we as far as soaking, it's one long soak and then multiple quick rinses after that to get all the asphalt off. And again, I encourage you to go read that if you want to study that yourself. And then we did update ITM 583. I don't think it's going to really impact any existing quality control plans or anything. We realized that a couple years back, we accidentally got rid of the SMA adjustment period language. So we put that back in there. Then, like I said before, we updated the cert at the end regarding 402 mix and the air void tolerance. So I guess I probably should start talking faster. Again, INDOT directives are online, but at the time putting this presentation together, I couldn't think of any that had changed recently. So just be aware they are out there if you want to take a look at them. It's a lot of the procedures regarding plate sample preparation. I think Directive 304, that has a lot of how we handle issues regarding appeals, or if we lose a sample, or if a sample is messed up. So that a lot of you guys would probably be interested in that. 305 is the design lab requirements. So 306, that's our newest one, with how we better, more uniformly do fine aggregate specific gravity. So those are out there if you want to take a look. So it's exciting this year. DMF Entry came out last year, and over the year and over the winter, we worked on HMA Pay Wizard, and it is currently live. So I just wanted to talk about these for a few minutes. So here's DMF Entry. Again, I think a lot of us are used to this by now. We've made some improvements to try to make it work a little better. We found out that the print function currently works a whole lot better in Google Chrome. It actually prints on a nice one-pager, easy to see. I wanted to use this opportunity to remind you that the SMA is currently outside of DMF Entry. We are working on getting that incorporated, but currently only dense graded and OG can be submitted through that. IDIQ and design build also are handled a little differently outside of DMF Entry. And we had I had some questions earlier this year, internally and from industry. I wanted to encourage to continue using the attachment feature in there, to go ahead and attach all the supplemental documentation for a DMF, TSR, all the optimum binder content, all that stuff that was used. Please go ahead and attach that in there, because the DTEs do use that when reviewing a mixed design. So HMA Pay Wizard is up and running. I sent out one of those mass emails a couple weeks ago now. And what I want to keep stressing is that R numbers, or they're also known as sample numbers or sample ID numbers. It's the long number that starts with an R and is followed by I think nine digits. Those are now very important to everyone. Everything starts with that R number, and it all begins. So this would be what it looks like for a supplier, HMA producer. You would click this Add Sample button right there, and it's going to pop up a screen, and you enter the sample ID or the R number, and that's how you begin the process of entering QC data, which then will allow, once QA data is populated, to post in here. So again, R numbers are very important. This is so if you put in a real R number, this is what it would look like, and you could put in the QC data, what you had for binder, max, pills, all that stuff. And then you have the option of also, for instance, if it's the end of a lot, you can select yes. Otherwise, that appeal window is not going to populate until further down the line. So, and there's more guidance and training that'll come out on this. Again, this is supposed to be just a quick overview. So once that QC data is in there, once the QA data is populated, this is kind of what it looks like. And I can't remember if, so anyway, it'll pop up the final pay and all that. So again, our numbers are very important. And this right here, this slide, this is actually more to our INDOT folks listening. To hopefully maybe there's some construction people here. For the district people, please reiterate this to construction people. our numbers on our side must be inputted into Site Manager in a timely fashion. Otherwise, the contractor will not be able to input QC data. And I actually just was troubleshooting this yesterday. One contractor couldn't input QC data because some of the information that has to be in Site Manager for it to pull into PayWizard didn't happen until it got to the consultant lab and it was checked in. So some of that automatic information like DMF number and stuff like that populated. So when we get construction more and more using our HMA tracker app and our field assistant app, a lot of that stuff is all going to happen automatically and should happen in real time. But I want to make everyone aware that there might be a slight delay on being able to insert QC data. I might have to wait a couple days once the sample's pulled. Again, this is for our guys. The QA results will only post in PayWizard if we use the lab testing application. I want to reiterate that if you take a handwritten sample, handwritten results, and you try to manually enter it into Site Manager directly, that data will not translate backwards into PayWizard. So it's important that we're using the correct application. And by way of reminder, open graded and SMA are still handled by the Excel workbooks, and we're working on getting that into eventually getting that in PayWizard as well. So I'm gonna wrap this up quick. I had a few more slides, but I'm not sure they're critical at this point. But I did want to show that if you want to subscribe to our emails, I send out a lot of summarized information. All this stuff in this presentation has been sent out on these emails before. If you just go to in.gov and you see this little mailbox symbol up there, you can sign up for all emails from Office of Materials Management. With that, I think I'm going to try to give the screen back to Matt, if I can figure out how.
Go to the top. There should be a button that says Stop Share.
Ah, there it is. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. And you received a lot of questions. If while you're sitting here, you want to go look at some of those questions, and I've got a few more slides. So, all right. Okay, here we go. I have a few more slides I wanted to share. I wanted to just give an update on the pay factors from 2019 of everything that there's a lot of efforts I won't get into here in a short time made to bring those pay factors back closer to overall 1 after what happened in 2018. And that's what, if you see the data there, we got much closer. PWL 0.98 and volumetric was a overall of 1. So we were, I think, in a much better spot last year than in 2018. I wanted to briefly talk about SuperPay 5. That is now out there for all contracts. But basically what we did, as you've seen in previous presentations, we went from air voids at InDesign from 4 to 5 in an attempt to get to make a mix more easily able to be compacted in the field. Had reduced gyrations, as you can see there, to 50 and 30. And we raised the lower spec limit for PWL density to 93%. I wanted to share this slide. This is what we actually got last year. We had an average of 94.41 statewide on SuperPay 5, which is really great, honestly. I mean, it's great to say that we're getting an average statewide density of 94. We're asking ourselves a question of, okay, is there a difference between 50 and 30 gyrations? And there is. So we're currently in discussion phases of what does this mean? Should we be having more mixes that have, a lower gyration level? We've done some Hamburg testing. We're not seeing any additional rutting from those 30 gyration mixes. So if we're not going to have a rutting potential, is there a benefit to using a 30 gyration mixes on even higher traffic routes? So we're currently discussing that, but I just wanted to share that data. We have a few more future topics I wanted to share about. or talk about, I know Nathan quite didn't get to all of his as far as our spray paver VRAM initiatives, things like that, right? But I wanted to also talk about PG binder. We're looking at that as far as what do we think the problem is. We have some issues that this is an example from our recent research on balanced mix design. And this is a flexibility index, IFIT, SCB testing. The 70-22 binder performed the worst. So that's making us question whether we're doing the right thing with the binder material. We don't know, or even selecting the proper grade. Should we be using -28 in the northern part of the state, et cetera. We don't have an elastic recovery spec, so is acid PPA the problem? And then we also are looking at, do we need a reliable way to validate the PG binder from mixed samples, and how much recycled binder is there, if that's the case. There's some other really interesting research going on, one of which is using phase change materials, which when I heard this proposed, I said, I was kind of like, really? But it's a concept of a material you could add to, it's been used in other areas of materials for many years. And it's an encapsulated substance of some kind that gets put in as a kind of I shouldn't say homogenized, but blended in to another material such as asphalt or concrete, and it allows differences in temperature changes, believe it or not. So you put something in there that goes through a phase change, and it either makes the temperature change to colder happen later or to hotter happen later, whichever way it's going, and however we tune those materials. So I don't have more to share right now. It's pretty heady stuff with some chemistry and things involved. The biggest thing, the concept works. The biggest question is, can we actually develop something that can be placed into a mix and pass through construction to the construction phase without damaging the encapsulation. We also have the ongoing research on using imaging technology for pills and cores, as opposed to using the water bath to determine the volume of a pill or core, and that is ongoing. We've had some ideas of using that imaging technology to validate tack coat also. It's just kind of an idea at this point. The performance testing, balanced mix design, performance engineered mix design, I think we just got done with our recent balanced mix design research, and it kind of gave us some inconclusive, I shouldn't say inconclusive, it was fairly conclusive that IFIT was not going to tell us what we needed to know about cracking. Hamburg tells us what we need to know about rutting, but the research also told us we don't have any mixes that have rutting problems in Indiana. So as tested by the Hamburg. So we're still kind of wanting to move forward, not exactly knowing where. There's this new concept of performance engineered mix design that uses some of the higher end tests, et cetera, and we're going to be a part of a study with that here in the, sometime this year, I believe. But I just wanted to say, we don't exactly know where we're going, but we're still forging ahead along with some other states, trying to figure out where and how we can use performance testing for our asphalt mixture. So I just wanted to say, add a slide here before we get to questions. We're all in this together, so stay safe, stay home when you're not working. Don't, follow all the guidelines, and I look forward to seeing everybody in person someday soon. It's going to seem so weird. I feel like anytime I've been, just like a lot of you have been watching movies and shows, I feel like now anytime I see a gathering of people, it's really weird to see because we can't get together as a group in any part of society anymore. But hopefully we get to do that soon, and I look forward to seeing you all. So with that, we have a lot of questions I see have popped up on the Q&A. Some of these I could probably answer. I can answer some of these. Nathan, maybe you want to answer. I see a question going from the top. Well, somebody told the name of the Seinfeld episode is The Kramer. If you want to go watch that, to see where that picture came from. That's behind me. Use of trackless tack. We allow it. The AENT. I don't know what else to the question there was in that, but we do allow that. The question was, does INDOT hold PRA test strips to a higher standard on Cat 3 than Cat 4? We're currently doing 2 this season. So yeah, the question has come up as to why we have a split. We have both Cat 3 and Cat 4 PRA test strips and we treat them separately. The idea for years was that, well, you're going to get differential wear with a slag is going to be different than the aggregate by itself, so we have to do both. But we've had those questions, so I don't have an answer that we change that, but we've definitely been considering that in some of our discussions. Nathan, do you want to, what's this next one from Stephen? Can you answer that one, do you think?
The use of coarse wrap in 9.5 category 4 surface is allowed. Can we use the coarse wrap in the 9.5 category 3 surface as long as we're using a dolomite stone for the coarse ag portion? Man, it's been a while since I've been back in the 904 section.
Yeah, that's why I threw it to you. I was the same way.
Yeah, I might have to think on that one.
Okay,
I'm not.
We will get
not
together
around
and get an answer on that one. Is INDOT allowing 402 ESOL substitutions for terminal joints? Yes, I've also been told we're going away from HMA terminal joints. I don't know when that's taking effect, but I've been told by the bridge group, I think, that we are not going to be doing that anymore. So I don't know, but that's just a statement that got made in a meeting. I don't know whether that's an idea or when and where that will take effect. 402 higher type substitution means checking all applicable 402 type boxes when submitting a mix via DMF entry. Yes. That would be by the person doing the entry should do that. Your 401 mixtures have the 2% air void tolerance. It's not exactly tolerance, right?
No,
Nathan,
yeah. So the spec, if you go to the 401 spec, we did ease up the pay reduction the farther you go away from the design air voids, and essentially it's a 2% window, which is why we translated that to the 402 mix as well. But the chart is a little different.
Okay, how do we get the new spec into contracts set before 9/1/19? 2004 says on or after 9/1/19.
All right, hold on, my questions moved around on me. So the new spec, only the RSPs apply to a contract that is under the 2020 specifications. So if the contract is let before 9/1/2019, it is not under the 2020 spec book. So the RSPs would not apply to those contracts. So if you have I know there's some contracts out there that were old contracts that adopted the RSPs, which now have been incorporated in the 2020 spec book. Those currently will not be able to adopt the new RSPs.
Okay, is it not considering the use of elastic recovery test? Yes, I think it will be. There's research that's going to be ongoing, and we'll be looking at that. I don't know whether we will, but we will consider it. Who receives the QA data from ITAP if multiple email addresses sending QC results? This is a question for you, Nathan. I'll let you answer this one. Okay,
so generally the person who has the ITAP account, whatever email is associated with that, is what's going to be receiving the automatic emails. As far as the HMA plant side, the producer side, different scenarios also send automatic emails out to the PES and district testing as well. The bottom line is there are, I'll call them, for instance, if you want that data to go to multiple people, I would suggest on that setting up filters on that email. The emails that come out will have standardized subject headers, and that'll become more apparent in the coming weeks. But you can set filters so that certain ones automatically get filtered to the right people. That's a lot easier. It gives you more control than having to contact us to insert correct email addresses in the program. Yeah.
All right, I've heard rumblings of possible delays of plate samples getting to the testing labs due to COVID-19. Do you see this being an ongoing issue? No, I mean, I suppose if you've heard rumblings, I guess I'd be curious as to what they are. Officially, we are going to continue to get those samples as fast as we can from the job site to the hub and then to the labs. A lot of the runners, I think, will be potentially deployed from home, so there could be some issues with that. And I'm not. It really would be probably something to ask your district and talk to them and see if there's any issues that are coming up kind of in real time with that. So I don't see it as an issue right now, but hopefully it doesn't become one. Is there a way to hide older designs in DMF Entry Wizard? I don't. Nathan, do you?
Hold on, where are we at?
It's kind of moving around. Is there a way to hide older designs? Looking at Chris's question there.
That's a good question. We can probably talk about that. I guess I know we turned it off so that 2019 designs cannot be applied to any pay items this year, but I didn't realize they were still showing in DMF Entry. We can look into that.
Okay, would not consider the use of stability and flow testing for 150 millimeter pills? Maybe. I don't know. That's a good question, Oleg. We will, yes, we would consider that. Can we set up lab technicians to be able to enter and save test data but not submit until reviewed? You mean, well, that's probably, if the way I understand the question, it's probably an enhancement to the program. I think the way it works now is you're going to have to set that up in your company, the way you want to do it. That would be, I think the way I'm reading it is a 2-layer kind of approval process. And I don't think that's the way the system is set up right now.
Yeah, I don't know if that was INDOT or industry, but if
that's industry.
Then yeah, just if you want to currently, if you want to enter QC data, you need to have an ITAP account through your company.
And there's not a second layer of approval built in.
Correct.
Okay. Is there going to be an in-depth training session for DMF Entry Wizard? Well, we had talked about this. We felt, well, there's DMF Entry / Pay Wizard. I guess there's multiple programs here. I think you probably mean Pay Wizard. We were concerned about having a training session before it was rolled out, before people could use it, because what does that really, you really need to try it. I think we're open to the idea of having some WebExes or Zooms or whatever, especially now that we're not going to be having in-person meetings anyway. So there is some training guidance that has been issued and published. That's a written guidance, but we kind of wanted to get everybody a chance to test drive the thing because it's kind of hard to know what you're looking at until you've actually tried it. So yeah, I do think we could probably have maybe sometime later in April a session that would be walking through and doing kind of a question and answer session. I think once people start to use it, there are still going to be some bugs. Hopefully we've found most of them. There's still going to be some bugs, and so that would be a good time to share what those are also. So that's a good thing. I think we could probably set something up via one of these Zoom or something here coming up later in April. And we're 4 minutes after, and I don't see any more questions. So thank you, Nathan, Kirsten. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't have anything. We can help facilitate setting something up for the in-depth DMF and Pay Wizard Zoom video later this month. So
okay.
I think that's a great idea.
I know construction's been talking about also providing through Kenny Goatee providing some more training on that. So hopefully something's brewing.
We'll get with Kenny and get something set up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for attending virtually. Stay safe. Keep going. We're gonna eventually someday we'll be able to go to a ball game and be in a big meeting again. But for now, thank you, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.